Books on the Brain.
Welcome back to Books on the Brain, a podcast of books and nonsense. I'm Deirdre.
And I'm Danielle.
And we're back with a new episode.
Are we?
I feel like really tall. Maybe I just need to back up a little bit.
I'm slouching. No, you're still taller than me.
Sometimes when we're on calls together and our heads aren't at the same height in my screen, it freaks me out. I'm like, ah!
Why is she so short? Because I have bad posture.
No, why am I so tall?
How tall are you in real life?
5'8".
Gag. not like vomit gag, but like tea. I don't know.
Can you hear my neighbors?
No.
Practicing music?
No, what are they playing?
Okay, good. I think it's the bassoon player. My neighbors go to Juilliard. And they practice really late at night.
The bassoon.
Yeah, it's the dulcet tones of the bassoon at 10:30 at night.
Don't they get practice rooms at Juilliard? Can't they afford practice rooms?
They gotta practice all the time, I guess. I know.
I have no ill will against the bassoon. I don't know why I'm making such a sour face.
No, I don't mind it, and then every once in a while I'm like, But then I'm like, if I was caring about my music, I'd be practicing in my apartment too. So
you know what? Fair. And I'm like, we all do annoying things to annoy our neighbors that maybe we don't always think or the things that are annoying our neighbors.
Yeah. When we first moved in, they were playing, and if you stand in our kitchen, you can hear it really well because that's where our two apartments are next to each other.
Gotcha.
And my roommate and I we're standing in the kitchen listening to them, and she looks at me and she goes, they sound really good. And I literally looked at her and I was like, they go to Juilliard. Yeah. I really hope they're good.
They're the best of the best.
I don't want to hear no out of tune, fumbling over scales. Like, it better be New York Philharmonic worthy every time.
And it will be one day. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember one time, I don't often get interactions with my neighbors because it's Lethbridge. It is what it is. But there was one night that there was this one TikTok, and it was somebody singing, and I wanted to duet it. So I'm sitting on my couch, like curled up in a ball, listening to it, trying to figure out the harmony for it. For a good hour and a half, like way too long, and like it was probably too loud. I was probably being too loud, and I just hear someone like banging from below me to like the rhythm of "Please Shut Up," and I was like, oh. But I still recorded that TikTok. I didn't post it, but I should have.
Oh,
it probably wasn't good, but
Girl,
my neighbors.
This is the era of posting whatever.
But my neighbors had to live through me teaching musical theater camps over Zoom for an entire 6 weeks over the summer, where I was every day standing and screaming Matilda the musical over Zoom to 30 kids, so they can have me shut up when I need to shut up.
That's fair. Sorry, I knocked over my books.
Your books fell over.
Yeah, my radiator's a little maxed out on space.
Your what?
My radiator.
Adds it to the list. Doesn't know what the list is, but she does add it.
You're not the first person that thinks I say it weird, and you probably won't be the last.
Radiator. In my defense, I didn't hear what you said, but you did immediately get very defensive, so I was going to pick fun at it. How was your week, my dude?
This week was long. I'm in the final push through my first draft of my thesis. It's due next Friday, and it's taking up 75% of my brain space, which is making doing literally anything hard. But yeah, can't complain. What about you?
Um, I don't. Deirdre and I have both gone through something very similar. I don't know. I know you talked about it online, but we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to.
No, I don't mind because I know I didn't say it last episode, and
And
listening
I
back,
felt like it was.
I was kind of like, why didn't I just say it?
I know. I think you're subconsciously being very respectful towards me, which is very kind. Or you just forgot, but I'll give you the credit either way. Deirdre and I both have had grandmothers pass away in the past year. My grandma passed away last week. So still a little fresh, still a little ouchy. But yeah, it's just this like strange, because she's like the first like big person in my life to pass away. It's just weird how like the world keeps moving. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, you guys, I need a minute. And people are like, you don't get it. And I'm like, you guys, please, I catch my breath. That's what I feel like. I feel like I need to catch my breath and no one's stopping.
Yeah, I can relate. It's a very bizarre feeling where you feel like you can't even take a day.
Because you can't. You just can't.
No.
And even if you do, what are you going to do during that day? Be sad? It's not taking a day.
Yeah.
Not taking a day. Anyway, shout out to your grandma, everyone. Go call your grandma at home. She deserves it.
She does.
She deserves it. All right, dude. What are we doing here today?
We are bringing back into what? We are bringing one of our most beloved series with us into season 3, which is our book reports. Y'all have expressed that you enjoy this series both individually to me and Danielle and to us as a podcast entity. And we are more than happy to keep doing this series because we find it entertaining and fun. I always get a lot of joy when I find things that either like passed me by and I can do a little bit more of a deep dive into them, or things I've never heard of before. So yeah, so this is going to be at least we're planning on it being a monthly recurring segment that we do. Who wants to go first?
Doesn't matter to me. Is yours? What's the tone? What's the tone of your story?
Mine is neutral. It's like just news, and I have an update on one of mine from last year.
Mine's like drama. It's not I can't say it's neutral, but it's shocking.
Oh, mine is drama too, I guess. I need to be a little bit more real about it.
Is drama tone? Tone is drama.
Tone is drama.
I can go first.
Do it.
Great. All right.
I'm ready.
Picture this. It's 2014. Oh, it's 2014, and you read a book that is billed Pretty Little Liars meets Fargo. What does that mean? Like, what a weird sell. Sure. Regardless. You read this young adult murder mystery, and you find some things in it a little bit troubling. You're like, ooh, didn't like how this mental illness was portrayed. Ooh, didn't like how you made fun of this. I'm gonna go where all informed, conscious readers go to leave my opinion. Goodreads. And I'm gonna type out my little review, and I'm gonna post it. But little will you know, reader at home, because for some reason we're doing a weird role play at the beginning of the story. Little do you know that choice will lead to the most terrifying encounters of your life. I know, Almond. This is crazy, dude.
I think I know what you're talking about.
This is the Goodreads stalker, Kathleen Hale.
I can't believe we haven't done this yet.
I was like, we must, but we didn't.
I talked about it very briefly in the Twitter essay one. because it was mentioned in one of the things that was mentioned in the essay.
Gotcha.
But we have not.
We have not. It's crazy, dude.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so author Kathleen Hale, her debut novel called No One Else Can Have You was sent out to ARC readers in 2014. And what I would like to preface this entire conversation with is all of the evidence of this has been scrubbed from the internet because it was in 2014. So you can't go find the original Goodreads review, you can't find any of this. What there is online is a article written by Kathleen Hale that was published in The Guardian about her experience, which I reference it throughout because she says some very incriminating things of herself in this article. But I just want to preface that this is all coming from her lens, from her bias. So take that with a grain of salt. I know, it's crazy, dude. Okay. So Kathleen writes this book and she sends it out to ARC readers and she's like, I'm so nervous. What if they hate it? So she's a debut author. So she's spending all day, every day checking Goodreads for reviews, which we know we don't do that anymore. We shouldn't have ever done, but we don't do it. But it's 2014. Maybe we haven't had these broad conversations yet. I don't know. Sure. I don't even know where I was in 2014.
I was in my freshman year of college.
That's why I was also in college. I just didn't want to think about it. It's too much brain power. So now Kathleen does what she describes as incredibly ill-advised, which, okay, a little insight there. She goes on Twitter and she's trying to figure out what to tweet because her book, the publishers, I think it was Penguin, or I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. A big publishing house was putting out this and they were like, hey, you need to have an online presence. So she was like, I'm gonna get a Twitter. So she's sitting at her little desk being like, tip, 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 what should I tweet? And then she sees this tweet pop up from this woman named Blythe Harris. Remember that name. I'm gonna say it a lot. Blythe is a fun little name to say. And she's just a book blogger who is a 10th grade teacher. She's a wife, she's a mom. She's 27 or something. A little bit older, but a little bit older is our age. Dear. Anyway, Blythe had tweeted Kathleen basically a quasi passive aggressive, you shouldn't be tweeting authors, subtweets about their books. It was just not that I'm blaming Blythe because I don't think this, again, 2014, but it was we know now that we don't tag authors and we don't engage with them in ways of their reviews.
Yeah.
But Kathleen sees this tweet and she's because Blythe had tweeted something you should include these in your next book. And I think it was meant to be sarcastic. And Kathleen was like, oh my God, thanks. Kathleen, embarrassing. So then Kathleen is like, oh, maybe Blythe left me a little review on little Goodreads. Let me go walk over there and see. And she did leave her a little review on
no.
But it wasn't a good one. So this is what part of what the review says. And again, this is Kathleen remembering the review. So I don't know if these are actually Blythe's words. So grain of salt, please. She goes to say, this is from Blythe. I think this book is awfully written in offensive, sorry. All aspects are horrible and honestly non-existent. The characters, who are R-word apologists and accused the book of talking about everything disrespectfully from domestic abuse all the way to PTSD. And then she goes on to say that it's one of the worst books she's ever read, maybe in her life, and basically just talks about how she dislikes that mental illness was used as a punchline in the book. And I tried to figure out, because I was like, what is this book about? I was like, oh, it's a little YA murder mystery. So it's about this girl who's trying to figure out what, I think her roommate dies, and she tries to figure out who killed it. So then she teams up with this middle-aged war veteran.
Okay.
And then at one point they moonlight as domestic abuse survivors to go to like a domestic support circle to like spy on someone, which I was like,
Oh, don't like that.
not great. I assume the PTSD is to do with the war veteran because that feels to be part of that stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like when people tag transphobia as a content warning when someone brings up Harry Potter, it's not inherently, but we have like it's how the readers are synthesizing that information that they're reading.
Right.
And then let me tell you something. So Kathleen's like, hey, wait a minute. Ouchie, my feelings. I'm going to say something. So she goes to comment under this review. And apparently, because I'm not an author, I did not know this. I don't know if you know this also. Goodreads has a pop-up that pops up when authors go to comment on readers' like reviews.
Okay.
And apparently but again, this is what Kathleen says. So this is what Kathleen says Goodreads says.
Sure.
We really, really, really don't think you should comment on this review, even if you think the reviewer is the review is against guidelines. Please bring it to our attention. Keep in mind that even if this review of the book includes factual errors, it won't be removed. If you still feel like you must leave a comment, hit accept and continue below to proceed. And again, we do not recommend it. So I would love any authors at home. Can you confirm?
I don't know if that's true.
I just would love, I think first of all, it should be regardless if it is currently. But part of me is like, I want it to be true. And part of me is like, there's no way that that's true.
I know.
How fun. So the comment she posted, she goes, don't care, post. And then Kathleen's mom enters the scene. Enter, stage right, Kathleen's mom. Kathleen's mom sends her a little link to a website called stopthegrbullies.com. Stopthegoodreadsbullies.com. Which was made by the people who co-founded BBA, which is Book Blacklist something. It's for blacklisted authors in the community, basically.
Sure.
Which I've not heard of either of these websites. I don't know if they've both
died off.
Gone out to greener pastures since we've joined the book community. But basically, Kathleen was put on this list, on this like bad authors to be blacklisted. And she was like, hey, wait a minute. If I'm on a list, Blythe should also be on a list. That's not fair. So Kathleen digs up this controversy with Blythe. Blythe had this interaction with this minor who was reviewing a book that Blythe really loved, and this reviewer really didn't like. So then Blythe's followers went and attacked this girl. Just bad news. Bad news bears. No one is redeemable in the story.
Yeah.
So Kathleen's like, see, she's a bad person. And everyone's like, Kathleen, it's not an or situation. We can all be a little bit bad in this situation, babe.
Correct.
So then this is there's a lot of literally when I was writing this, I was like, this is where it hits the fan, but that's every paragraph. It just keeps hitting the fan.
Yeah.
So Kathleen starts to spiral. Kathleen is not coping well. She talks a little bit at the beginning of the article about her mental state and how she was like not okay. Mm-hmm. So I will preface this conversation with, she does acknowledge that she was not stable at this point.
Right.
I think at any point during this, she was not stable. But contention between Blythe and Kathleen continues and goes on for weeks. Kathleen is like convinced that Blythe is subtweeting her constantly, has no proof. How do you prove someone's subtweeting? You can't. I mean, sometimes you can.
Sure.
Depends on how hard you look, and boy, oh boy. So Kathleen's mom pays to run a background check on Blythe. And then her mom posted it on Twitter, and then she starts getting cyberbullied. Which I was like, leave Kathleen's mom alone. She doesn't know about Twitter. She's not okay. She's old. She doesn't know how to use Twitter. It's also not cool to run background checks on random people you don't know. Strange.
No, that's not okay.
So then Kathleen in this article goes on to describe her next bout of behavior as light stalking, which I already consider at this point we've well past light stalking, but in her eyes, we're reaching that now.
Sure.
So she is like, describes that she spends hours a day prowling Blythe's Instagram and Twitter and is like reading all of her reviews. She has like a little quote in the article. I read her reviews, considered her photos on baked goods, and watched from a distance as she got on her soapbox. At one point, bragging that she was the only person she knew who used her real name in this profession online. So then Kathleen comes across a tweet one day that Blythe tweets about a manuscript that she's reading herself. And Kathleen's like, interesting, Blythe, that you should be saying my writing sucks. Maybe your writing sucks, babe. So then she subtweets her. Again, this is the story of subtweeting, where people are like, it's about me. I'm like, you can't prove it. Just tag them next time.
Yeah, seriously.
And then Twitter gets mad. People are like turning on Kathleen. They're like, you can't do that, dude. Stop. And she is like, people are like, reviews are for readers, not for authors. Like, just leave them alone. Yeah. So then the book gets published. This is all before the book gets published. The book gets published. And book clubs start reaching out to Kathleen, being like, hi, we want to have your book club. Do you want to like come to an interview with us? Do you want to like do a giveaway, like send some books, whatever. They were like, but you need to pick a book blogger to like help facilitate these conversations. So Kathleen obviously goes, I choose Blythe, the person who gave me a bad review. I pick Blythe. Why? Kathleen, why? Drama. And so through this exchange, guess what Kathleen gets?
I think I know.
Blythe's home address. She gets her home address, and she, in the article, says she immediately goes to Google Maps and like looks at what her house looks like. And I was like, Kathleen, you can't say that. And she published this, and she thought it was like calling people out. And I was like, this is incriminating, Colleen. Colleen, her name's Kathleen, not Colleen. I called her Colleen constantly, and I was like, wrong. No, wrong woman. And then she goes into the telephone directory and in census reports for the house and figures out that the house belongs to someone named Judy Donofrio, not Blythe Harris. Things are unraveling. And she does say that the internet check cost her $19. She does specifically say that in the article. So know that she was putting down her own money on this.
Dang.
And then Kathleen, because this is, I need to say this because this is what the article is called. Kathleen has been like conferring with this friend the whole time, being like, oh my God, you got, what are we gonna do with this? And then she emails this friend and she's like, oh my gosh, we've been catfished. And so the article's called Catfish. And I'm like, I don't know if people in glass houses should be throwing stones, babe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're stalking people online. You can't be like, but she catfished me, which is way worse. So then her friend's like, well, there's only one way to find out.
Bad friend.
Go talk to her. And then this other friend who was in the group chat was like, oh, probably don't do that. And then Kathleen's like, oh, I won't. But then she books a flight for a couple months away. So in her defense, or no, not a flight, it's a car. It's a car, fact checking. She's booking a car rental. In Kathleen's defense, she didn't do it the next day. So small little kudos to her.
Small, like pretty minuscule, I think.
It's pretty minuscule. I'm just trying.
Minuscule.
I'm just trying. So some time passes and Kathleen is still trying to do this book club. So she's trying to reach out to Blythe, being like, can we confirm a date? Can we do a video chat to like debrief before? And Blythe's like, oh, sorry, I am not doing this. My family, something happened, emergency, and also I'm on a vacation in Europe. And Kathleen's like, yeah, right. I'm gonna prove you wrong. And she goes to her social media to stalk her and sees that she is in Greece. And she's like, she goes on this like long rant where she's like, the photos look generic. How could I know if it wasn't just from Google? And then she goes, but then she posted a photo of herself and she was tanned. And I knew she went to Greece, and I was like, there you have it, folks. There you have it.
There you have it.
And this is where it starts to get weird.
Okay.
And
Because it wasn't already weird.
I know. So Kathleen thinks to herself, I'm being catfished. What do I do? She reaches out to Nev from Catfish.
Neve?
Yeah. Neve. I called him Nev the whole time I wrote this. You're gonna have to remind me, Neve. And is like, I need some advice on being catfished. And he talks with her. She refers to him as a friend in the article. So I don't know if they knew each other from before, but I was like, there's no way. So Neve.
I think I can hear people yelling at us.
I know. The guy from Catfish was like, he said, I think he was shocked with her plan to go and like confront this woman unannounced, because she did not know that Kathleen had her address.
Right.
At all. So he was like, she's a woman who sits behind her computer, accountability, blah, 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 blah. I have to say this verbatim because it made me laugh so hard. He basically says like, she does this because she doesn't need to look people in the face when she's criticizing people, and it's easier. And that she hurt Kathleen's feelings. And then Kathleen goes, how do you know she hurt my feelings? And then Neve goes, because you're going to her house. And I was like, fair.
Hello.
Fair. And then, ladies and gents and all my friends at home, we get to the part where she goes to her house and drives to Judy/Blythe's house. And I've pulled chunks because it's just deranged. She says, I parked on the street next to Judy's house. It looks like something from a storybook, complete with dormer windows and lush, colorful garden. It was only now occurring to me that I didn't really know what to say, and probably should have brought a gift. I needed a little white flag. Then she talks about she tries to find something in her bag to give this woman, and she finds a book. And the book was called A Short Guide to Happiness, I think. That she comments that seems or A Short Guide to a Happy Life. And she comments that it seems a little passive aggressive, but she figured it was better than nothing. Wild. She goes, before I changed my mind, I walked briskly down the street towards the Mazda parked in Judy's driveway. I hear tires on the gravel and spun around to see a police van for a second. I thought I was going to be arrested, but it was just passing through. Imagine thinking, am I going to get arrested for this? But then continuing to do it. So then she knocks on the door. No, she doesn't knock. She goes up to the door. She sees like a figure silhouetted in the window. Sure. She hears a dog barking, and Judy/Blythe does have a Pomeranian on the Instagram. She was like, oh, it's the Pomeranian from Instagram. I knew it. I know a Pomeranian bark from anywhere. She doesn't say that. That was mine. I put that on her. And then she goes on to say that like the doorbell was torn off, the garden was overgrown, the house was in disarray. I was like, you called it a storybook like a paragraph ago, Kathleen. And then she goes, I dropped the book on the step and walked away after she saw like the dog barking and she saw the figure. Sure. Then she says this, of course, in my admittedly privileged life, I considered my visit to Judy my personal rock bottom. Which feels like, okay, yeah, agreed.
I would say so.
It just is wild. So then Kathleen goes, okay, I need closure because I didn't actually get to talk to Judy when I went to her home unannounced.
Sure.
So she calls Judy, pretending to be a fact checker for an article to see. I don't know how she gets her phone number. Oh, from the phone directory. I answered my own question.
Yeah.
So she calls.
She has her address.
She has her address, so she can figure out her phone number. So she calls Judy, and she's like, what's your name? And Judy's like, for an article. And Judy's like, and she's like, are you vice president of this company? And Judy's like, I have to go. And then Kathleen's like, you still online as Blythe Harris and book review, and like screams it in the phone. And Judy's like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please leave me alone. BRB, see you never. So she hangs up. And then, no, she doesn't hang up. Oh, I lied. I'm a dirty, rotten liar. So basically, Kathleen then goes, someone has been using your images and your address online to pretend to be this Blythe woman. Because she denies being Blythe. Judy does.
Sure.
And so then Judy's like, what do I do? Do I call the police? And Kathleen's like, you can get our account reported, whatever, like really trying to paint herself as being the hero here, which is not great. But then the phone conversation ends, and immediately Blythe has deleted her Twitter and has put her Instagram to private. They were not taken down. It was made private, and her Twitter was deleted. So, but it not fully deleted because it comes back. So hold on to your horses here.
Sure.
So then Kathleen thinks it's well within her rights to contact publishing houses to see if they've continued to ship books to this address. And they have been for the past over a year, as recent as 2 weeks ago. So it's kind of left ambiguous. Is this woman Blythe? Is she not? Does it matter? Why is Kathleen so involving herself?
Also, why is she able to get so much personal information?
Because I think it's 2014. People don't know yet. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm giving them too much of a scapegoat. But
right? Like, let's be real for a second. You and I grew up in the age of the internet becoming a thing. How old were you when you were first told not to give out private information online?
Oh, like when I started using computers in kindergarten.
Same.
Yeah, maybe I'm being too nice to them. You should probably know better. That's a good thought. It's a good thought. So Kathleen goes, I need closure, more closure. So she goes back to Nev, and he suggests that she should call Judy back again and be like, you need to give me answers. Which is, I'm like, I don't think he would say it, but I also don't know him, so I'm like, I don't know.
Sure.
So she calls her back. And it's like, you need to be honest with me. And then Judy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone. And so they fight on the phone. And then Kathleen gets blocked on everything by Blythe.
Yeah. Which should have happened initially.
It should have. And she goes on to say that she missed her stalking. And I was like, Kathleen, baby, stop.
Seek help.
So then Kathleen posts this article called Catfish. She writes it for The Guardian. She publishes it. And people are like, dude, this is a self-report on you being really creepy. So then a hashtag on Twitter starts going viral called Hale No. And she has been completely blacklisted from the YA community. No one will review her books. No one's accepting her arcs. No one will do any kind of book blitz or blog whatever for her.
Yeah.
So she has nobody. Everyone's like, you are not a safe person, which is fair because she's not a safe person. So she publishes this essay collection, which she titles "Kathleen Hale is a Stalker." And it includes the Catfish essay and 6 essays that she'd written for a whole bunch of different newspapers. So she just combines them and then puts them into a book. And people were trying to boycott it. They were like, actually, should you be publishing this, publishing house? And the publishing house was like, we're probably gonna do it anyway. So they do.
Hello.
And so she's written books since. She wrote a sequel to the book that started it all.
Yep.
And this is crazy. This is what led me to actually researching her. I actually have semi-read a book by Kathleen Hale, and I did not know.
Oh.
She read that Slenderman. She wrote that Slenderman book that I started last year and didn't finish because I didn't like it. And you know why I didn't finish it? Because she didn't talk to any of the people in the actual case, and she says that in her like intro, in her preface, when she talks about the case. She was not granted any interviews with any of the family members or anybody involved with the Slenderman stabbings, but she still wrote a book on it. And I said, I can't read this. And that is Kathleen Hale.
Oh my God.
And that's the story of the Goodreads stalker.
But I think she eventually met the person she was stalking.
I'm sure she did. I could not find it anywhere. Everyone, tell me.
I'm 90% sure that it ended up being Judy's son. I'm gonna have to fact check myself on this.
No, it's okay. Just tell me and we'll just pretend it's
because
true.
I'm pretty sure from what I remember reading was that like the whole stuff with Greece was like they were on vacation, but he ended up posting his mom's photos or like his aunt's photos or something. And I'm 90% sure they ended up meeting, and then she published a full book a couple years later about the whole experience. But like
Judy did?
No, Kathleen. In like a fictional.
Yeah, that's the essay. The essays are like written from like the psychiatric hospital. So they're essays, but they're like in character.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was this whole thing, and I didn't include it because it just felt so like unnecessary, but there was this whole thing where on that first phone call she had, they realized that the photos that Blythe was using were like one of Judy's friends from this and this, so it was like all these things to discredit, but it just didn't feel like it was clarifying at all to see if she was doing it or not. Again, this is all from Kathleen's perspective. All of it is, so you got to take it with a grain of salt.
I want to make sure I'm not
That's okay.
losing my mind.
That is okay. Also, I will have you know, Blythe is a hard name to write. I was like writing my script and it was not coming out Blythe. Also, just like who gets named Blythe? Like it feels like such a fun little name. Do you know any Blythes in real life?
No, but I feel like I've read so many Blythes.
Oh, really?
Like read it as a name.
Blythe feels like one of those names that someone isn't born with, but they get when they're like 60. Like, have you met a Blythe who's 15?
No. You're
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Any luck?
It's not coming up. But I know I read.
Comment down below on our Instagram if you know for sure, listeners at home.
Anyway.
That's it.
Yeah, I feel like
if they met, that is
I think so.
Crazy. That is like
Maybe
I don't know. It just not that I don't believe you. I just feel like if I was either of them, I'd be like, I need space, time, and total
I know.
distance from this.
Maybe they didn't meet like in person. I don't know. We'll have to do more.
We'll have to do an update when we find it. Stay tuned.
That was I'm so glad you did that one.
Thanks. I had fun.
I bet you did.
I did. I like the voices I do for Kathleen and for Blythe because they were the same.
I know. I really liked that part.
Thanks.
Sorry, I have to put on chapstick before I
dive in. Chapping lips.
Or exploring this new limited editing.
I think it's funny.
Thing. I like it.
Me too. Both wrists
my wrist just cracked. Okay, my turn. So I have an update on one of my book reports from last year. If you have been around long enough, you might remember when I talked about the arrest of Filippo Bernardini, who was caught for stealing manuscripts. He has been sentenced to 20 years in prison, and he pleaded guilty to wire fraud Yeah, and he pleaded guilty to wire fraud.
Wow.
Mhm.
20 years.
20 years. And he's 30.
And Brock Turner only got what, 3 months?
6, but I think he only did 3.
I'm gonna say this. Bernardini, Kathleen, probably could be friends.
Correct.
They have a lot of mutual interests.
Correct. Same
Being
vibe.
online too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's my update. And now we'll get into the new. AI audiobooks. Is it the way of the future?
No.
Yes.
No.
So
Not no to you. I have a lot of feelings about AI.
this is a direct quote from Apple's website.
Okay.
Every great story deserves to be told. Get the knowledge, tools, and inspiration to help the world read or listen to yours. Turn your book into an audiobook with digital narration. Apple Books makes it easy to bring your book to millions who want to listen with digital narration. So Apple quietly launched their new digital narration feature at the beginning of January. The first stories were written by The Guardian and The Verge, and those are my two main sources.
That's the theme of the episode. The Guardian.
The Guardian. Apple claims that its aim is to empower independent authors and small publishers who may not be able to afford or tackle the complex production process required to transform their books into audiobooks.
Okay.
And they want to make the creation of audiobooks, quote, more accessible to all. It is no surprise. I mean, you and I both listen to audiobooks. It is no surprise that audiobooks are on the rise. I'm about to get into some number things.
Statistics.
In a brief from Publishers Weekly posted on June 8th, 2022, the Audio Publishers Association's annual sales survey, that was a mouthful,
That was really long,
revealed that for the 10th year straight, there was a double-digit increase in audiobook sales.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. Quote, the 28 member companies reporting to the APA had revenue gains of 25% in 2021, bringing the estimated industry total to $1.6 billion in sales last year. This 2021 jump bested a sales increase of 12% in 2020. The number of audiobook titles published in 2021 was also up to nearly 74,000 titles, representing a 6% increase over 2020's output. Based on percentage of sales, the science fiction and fantasy genre was the most popular category, with mysteries, thrillers, suspense a close second. Romance experienced the largest sales boost in the year with a 75% jump in revenues.
Holy smokes.
Those are some big numbers.
Big. Wow.
And behind those numbers is a lot of freaking money.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of influence.
Yeah. So Apple is not the first company to offer digital narration. Google Play already offers it, which is something I did not know until I read this.
Whoa.
So Publishers Weekly published a brief in April 2022, which said, quote, Google Play Books announced that publishers in 6 countries, the US, Canada, UK, Spain, Australia, and New Zealand, can now create, edit, publish, and sell auto-narrated audiobooks on its platform. Customers wishing to create an auto-narrated audiobook must provide an English or Spanish language EPUB ebook file and additionally offer the ebook for sale on Google Play. Publishers will receive 52% of the revenue generated by an AI narrated audiobook. Potential audiobook publishers on the platform must also assert that they own the audio rights to the title in the selected language and territories. We're not going to get into Google, but it is interesting that this is something that was already kind of out there and I hadn't even heard about.
So interesting.
So Apple's website Says the feature is initially only available for romance and fiction books with 2 current AI narrators, Madison, a soprano, and Jackson, a baritone.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. The
Wait,
service
what's her name
is
again?
Madison
Madison
and Jackson.
Okay, continue.
Like middle America names. That was mean.
Yeah, I was like, no,
I
it's
grew
not
up with a
mean.
girl named Madison.
I know so many Madisons.
The
Shout out
service.
if you're Madison, comment on our Instagram if your name's Madison. Deirdre will call you middle American to your face.
That was mean. That was mean.
Well, it's only mean if you say it's mean. It's not. Maybe middle Americans are cool. I don't know.
We're moving on. The service is only currently available in English and is currently, like I said, only supporting romance or fiction, but specifically literary, historical, and women's fiction. Mysteries, thrillers, science fiction, and fantasy are not currently supported.
Why? Do you know?
I feel like they just feel like they can't do it.
Maybe too many words that they don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. They don't say. Just that it's not available.
It just seems that it's weird that they're all like aimed towards female demographics.
I know. Interesting. Sorry, my nose is really itchy.
That's okay.
Apple had actually initially intended to launch this back in November, but in one of the articles it said because of Elon Musk's chaotic acquisition. Whoa. Because of Elon Musk's chaotic acquisition of Twitter and layoffs at Meta dominating headlines, they delayed the launch. But I think this is interesting considering they still launched it with little to no buzz.
Yeah, like
so I feel like it was like a blip on TikTok that I heard about this and nobody actually ran with it and talked about it.
Interesting.
Apple has reportedly been approaching independent publishers about narrating their books, offering to shoulder the production costs while paying out royalties to authors. There, in some of these articles, it was saying that the initial reach out was very secretive. Obviously, this is a big tech company. Apple is notorious for NDAs, needing to be signed. So this has been a heavily guarded secret, it seems like. Apple's website says that publishers and authors would retain audiobook rights and can put out other versions of the audiobook if they choose.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
My only other point of reference was that one audiobook company that was going to happen and very much did not happen.
Right.
And like they were going to have the rights for a year or something.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting.
Yeah. Surprisingly, Apple's approach to digital narration is the opposite of Amazon's.
Oh.
So this is something I find fascinating. Audible rules explicitly state that submitted audiobooks, quote, must be narrated by a human. Kindle actually used to offer text-to-speech as a feature, but it was discontinued like 10 years ago after copyright concerns were raised. There has been at least one AI narrated audiobook that appeared on Amazon, but it was removed after being recorded. So on the Apple website, they even have a chart that shows what publishing via Apple gives you versus Kindle Direct Publishing. So on Apple, yeah. So you get all of these things with Apple Books and none of these things with Kindle Direct Publishing. 70% royalties on every ebook, regardless of price. No file delivery fees. No limitations on offering free books to customers. No payments for preferential store placement. No price matching. No third-party ads. Wait, the thing cut off. Hello?
This would never happen with Apple Podcast audiobooks.
I know. Whoa. Oh my God. Could you not? Please. I know there's more. Oh my God.
That's okay.
I'm so embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed.
I can be embarrassed. It's okay.
Yeah, it is okay to be embarrassed.
Oh, maybe that was it. No price matching and no third-party ads, right?
Yeah, that's the last thing you said.
Yep. Never mind. There was no more. Which I think is fascinating. Also, bold of them to put that chart out directly on their website.
That is Kathleen behavior coming from Apple.
They do plan to offer AI narrated nonfiction and self-development audiobooks that will be rolling out 2 additional voices named Helen and Mitchell.
Madison Helen Mitchell Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
What a family.
What a family.
The apples.
The apples. They should be like Granny Red Delicious. Come on.
Oh my God. The initial temperature check from industry professionals in the articles I read were quite lukewarm.
Okay.
And made the case that audiobook narration isn't just another media for a book to be published in. Obviously, we know like it helps with barriers of accessibility and especially like for people that might be in school,
Absolutely.
like helps them retain their text more. Like there's a lot to be said for auditory learning and listening and all that kind of stuff. But they were also saying that narrators are able to breathe life into these characters, adding nuance and texture, essentially creating another art form outside of the written text. And they're able to give this book almost a second life outside of what the author was able to initially do. And you kind of lose that with AI. So again, there has been very little buzz since the announcement, which I think is really interesting. I'm surprised that more people, at least in the spheres I'm in, aren't talking about it. So I'm interested to see if we actually will see authors and publishers utilizing AI narrators heavily or even at all in the future.
I would love to hear a sample of what they sound like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so interested if they sound like incredibly robotic or not.
Right.
Because that would definitely be like a deal breaker for me. I don't.
Right, because obviously, like
a choice.
Apple was or is Siri, you know, and I feel like that's who we think of when we think of robotic voices. Like I don't have an Alexa, so I don't think of that. When I'm thinking AI, I'm thinking Siri, who is incredibly robotic.
Yes, but is a real woman. Very interesting.
Yep.
I have 2 important things I need to say, and I'll make them quick. Number 1 is I did this this extra credit for this voice class I was in, but it was a startup that was taking people like reading stories out loud, and we're using their voices for like automated voice technology for people who don't have the ability to speak.
Oh.
So I was like, this could work well if they were able to take like actual like a bank of people speaking and then use their voices for that. I was like, that'll work really well. Unless don't use mine because I didn't get paid for it, so you'd have to ask me to use my copy of Velveteen Rabbit, which I did read out loud. But that's what made me thought. And then also we like AI, we've been talking about it non-stop in the education faculty.
It was on everybody's bingo boards for 2023.
And like people are, because to be completely honest, you had not heard about AI generated audiobooks until this very moment. I was like, what is that even? We're talking a lot about it in the ed faculty because people are like, how do you assign kids essays? They're just going to go and put it into an AI generator and it's going to write the essay for them. And they will, and they'll write it well. And like all these things were now like, as educators, you have to be like, how can you assess written work that you don't know is coming from your students? It's very interesting. But there's also like really cool things, like if you have a student who's on a certain like, I don't know, like learning plan where they don't have to write as much, but maybe they just type it into the AI chat and then it generates a story for them. Yeah. Do they need like there's some really cool things about accessibility, but it's all we've been talking about is AI.
I'm sure. And then we saw the whole thing with Lenza where
the photos
where a bunch of artists came forward and were like, this is my art that has been stolen.
It's crazy.
You know? And it's like, how are you able to make sure that it's legal?
Well, and you can't, like, when you do AI generated writing, it doesn't cite anything. So you could be like, write me a paper on this, and it has all the facts, but it does not cite where you're getting them from. So it's like so incredibly plagiarized and illegal, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And it's like, but is it a crime? Because is it sentient? I don't know. Lots of questions. Great job.
Thank you. A round of applause for you too.
Nicole Kidman clap. So our theme was The Guardian.
The Guardian. Yes.
So strange.
Which is hilarious.
That is funny. Oh man, oh man. Okay.
Ready to get into current reads?
Wee. So before we got on this call, Deirdre and I both were like, what do we talk about? And Deirdre and I had the opposite problems. Deirdre had like a million books that she could talk about. And I was like, did I talk about the one book I've read so far this year already? Do you remember what I read last week?
And the answer was no.
No, but I did eventually remember that I talked about Spare, which I still haven't finished because I was so turned off by that one clip that went so viral on TikTok that I have not been able to pick it up since. Mostly because people kept sending it to me because they thought it was funny. Don't send me. Don't. Everybody stop.
We were talking about it at work yesterday, and everybody was like, I'm sorry, he what? And I was like, how have you not heard about this?
It's everywhere. And although I did see a take that I thought was very interesting, people were like, the reason that Prince Harry is so incredibly honest and so incredibly like lay it all out there is because this is the first time that anyone is speaking out, and he gets to tell his own story in the way that he wants, so he's undercutting anybody who can say anything in return. And I was like, fair, dude, like that's the ultimate petty, but at what cost?
At what cost? That's the question.
What cost? But I'm gonna go first because I remembered a book that I did start that I have not talked about.
Please do.
And my mommy got it for me for Christmas. So nice. Thanks, mommy. My mommy got it for me and for my brother-in-law, who's also going to be a teacher. It's a book called For the Love of Learning, A Year in the Life of a School Principal by Kristen Phillips. Wow. So interesting. It is actually very interesting. It's a nonfiction book. Kristen is Canadian. She's from Ontario, which is so nice. There's very little Canadian education rep. So, whoa. But basically it goes a year in her life. So it starts on the first day of school and goes like day by day, event by event, parent teacher interviews, and chronicles her life of being a school principal for an elementary school. It is so interesting. It is very interesting. I think you don't have to be someone who is like in the education field to enjoy it either, because I think parents would enjoy it, or people who are like interested in like leadership. Like, it's very interesting. She has to do a staff meeting and she's like, I know nobody wants to do a staff meeting, but we have to. And like the pressure that she gets from the district versus the needs that she sees of her teachers. It's very interesting. But there's one little guy in there. His name's Miles. And he's this 5-year-old who's starting kindergarten. And he's the first time we meet Miles in the book. And these are all based on real people. She's obviously changed their name. But the first time we meet Miles is she's getting like a phone call from the classroom. They're like, can you come help us? So she wiggles her butt down the hallway. And she just hears swearing from the kindergarten classroom. And she's like, hello? And Miles is ripping it up. Dude's angry. So then it starts this tradition of every morning around 9:30, she gets a call. And she knows when she gets the call, she just walks down to the kindergarten room to get Miles and brings him to her office.
Sure.
And she has to call mom every day, and mom's like going through it. She's like, there's like extraneous circumstances at home that are like not helping.
Right.
But Miles will just go to the office. He'll like slump on the ground. He'll pick up a book and he'll throw it at the principal, and she'll just start reading it, and she'll read it 3 or 4 times, and then by the end he's like climbed into her lap, and I was like, I love Miles. Oh. Miles just wants to swear, which I'm like, dude, fair. Same, also meat. But it's I think it's like a fun little read. It's also like nice to be nonfiction and be something that I'm studying right now.
Yeah.
But it's always just nice to get other people's perspectives on things, because sometimes when you're in the same environment around people who feel and think the same way, it's nice to be like, oh, there's this other perspective. Not that
Yeah.
it's like vastly different, but it's still pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's as far as I've gotten. I haven't gotten to the end of the year. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. I'm excited. And is this nonfiction?
Yeah. Canadian nonfiction. What a
Wow.
treat.
That sounds so
And it came out
fascinating.
like in August, so it's quite
Oh,
yeah.
excuse me.
That's okay.
Oh, it was a violent hiccup. Okay, so I decided I'm going to talk about two books. One I finished last year, like right at the end of the year, that I haven't talked about yet. And
Yeah.
one that I just started that I'm really, really excited about. So
Ooh.
at the end of the year, I finally read For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. And
Oh yeah.
I finished the duology. I've read both, but I'm only going to talk about For the Wolf because I think that's appropriate. I find it, I'm sure you find this too, when you read series, it's really difficult to talk about the series because I feel like I'm giving things away because I know things that happen in the second book.
Yeah.
So we're just going to focus on the first book. So it's billed as like a fractured fairy tale retelling focusing on Little Red Riding Hood, but there are
Oh.
definitely aspects of like Beauty and the Beast, Snow White, like a
Ooh.
bunch of other fairy tales interwoven, but like so minimally that it really does kind of become its own fairy tale in the end,
Cool.
which is
That's
really
awesome.
fun. Because I'm like, when was the last time a new fairy tale was written?
Who knows, dude? I don't know.
You
Never.
know?
No, not in our
Um,
lifetime.
and I guess technically it can't be considered new because it takes from other ones, but like which ones don't, you know?
New musicals on
Um,
Broadway hardly happen.
retweet. So there's a prophecy given and is like the standing order of things when you start the book, and it's the first daughter is for the throne, the second daughter is for the wolf. And
Hey, wait a minute. You
this
would be
has
the
been,
throne. I would be the.
yeah. So for centuries, the first daughter born is next in line for the throne. If there is a second daughter born, then when they turn 20, they are sacrificed to the Wilder Wood, which is like this magical forest, and they have to find the wolf within in the hopes that they are going to bring back these kings that got trapped in there ages and ages ago.
Okay.
And in an attempt to trap this like really dark power that sends monsters out of the Wilder Wood. So there's like a lot that this single
Yeah.
person is
A lot
responsible
of.
for.
Yeah.
And no girl has ever come back out after going in.
Hey.
So we meet Red the night before she is going to be sacrificed, and it's her and her twin sister.
Oh, no.
So not only are they sisters and not only are they close, they are twins.
No.
So Red has kind of resigned herself to her fate, and it becomes pretty apparent early on that something happened like 2 or 3 years ago with magic, that she's not only sacrificing herself to the Wilder Wood because it like she needs to fulfill a prophecy.
Yeah.
She needs to protect her family from herself. And the only way she can do that is by separating from them.
Whoa.
Yeah. So then once she enters the Wilder Wood, we are thrown into this fantastical, like really complex magic wood.
Mhm.
And we meet the wolf and learn the backstory. And it's very much like some of my favorite tropes in fairy tales of like history is forgotten and rewritten. The people that are telling the stories aren't often being truthful because they want a specific narration to be kept on. There's also the lore of the Wilderwood you get to explore, where like when the Wilderwood was formed, like part of the land was stuck. So there are people that are like, what's the word? They're like kind of trapped, essentially. They like can't get trade from anywhere. They can't go through the Wilderwood, and they
It's like
can't
Ravka.
leave. Yeah, essentially. And so you sort of learn the like politics of everything and how the throne that Neve eventually will sit on is in a really good place of power because nobody else wants to deal with the Wilderwood. Because who wants to sacrifice their kids, man?
Not me.
But it was really good. It was very dark and twisty, and there was romance, which I wasn't expecting.
Romance alert.
Romance alert. And it was one of those books where a couple people had told me I was going to love it, and I was like, I feel like you're right. Like it feels like it's something that's up my alley, and I waited so long to read it, but I read them back to back. I was like, I gotta know. So that's number one. I love that duology. I'm really excited for Hannah's book that's coming out this year, The Foxglove King. I'm very much in my dark fantasy, dark fairy tale era. And the other book that I want to talk about is The Chonker, that is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I have an arc of it. You do too, right?
Yeah, look, it's the same size as my cat.
I'm this far in.
I'm starting.
I
got hit in the face.
I'm on page 48, chapter 4.
Hey!
I'm trying to read like 215 pages a week, and I'll be done in 4 weeks.
That's not bad.
That's my goal. We'll see how I do with week 1. The thing that this is reminding me is that I love Samantha Shannon's writing.
Yeah.
Samantha Shannon obviously wrote Pride of the Orange Tree. Day of Fallen Night is the prequel. She's calling it a standalone prequel, which I don't understand how 2 books can exist in the same universe and be like really intertwined, because what happens in this book affects what happens in Pride of the Orange Tree, how they can be considered 2 standalones. But whatever, it's her book. She can call it what she wants, I guess. But even though these aren't the characters that we met in Priory, coming back to this world and like a different time of this world is really exciting. And it took me a minute to get into the prologue because my brain was like, high fantasy. But once I got into it, I was like, oh, this is really cool. We're learning even more about the like lineage of a lot of these people, and like motivations and character traits are apparent from the start. So there's like, even I find more chance for a character arc because we're like, oh, I understand this character so much, like from page 1. And I'm just enjoying it. I do find myself like, I'll read a chapter and I'll kind of go, okay, I need like a 5-minute break. And then I'll scroll on TikTok and then I'll be like, okay, time for the next chapter. And then I'll get to the next chapter and I'm like, I could do one more. And then I'm like, oh, I could do another one. And then I'm like, I'm too tired. I have to go to bed. And so I'm like battling this, like getting my brain back into the writing style, but also battling with the fact that I'm reading it 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
So, processing slow.
Fair.
And that's what I'm reading.
Exciting.
Yay. I love these episodes.
Me too.
I think they're fun.
When we were planning our triumphant season 3, we said we were in our education era, which very much book reports our education. And we've got more education era things coming. Maybe to tune next week for some special new things. So exciting.
Please let us know what you are currently reading. Would love to know. And if you have any suggestions for future book reports, things you want us to
Madison.
Sure, or Jackson. If you want us to dive deep into something, we would love to know what y'all are also interested in hearing about. Because most of these just come from random Google searches, to be honest. But that is it for this week's episode. We are figuring out the new outro because not only are we now on all podcast platforms, we are also on YouTube. So you're gonna want to be sure that you rate, review, and subscribe if you're listening on a podcast platform, but also hit that little notification bell on YouTube
Ding, ding, ding.
and like and comment. So, and subscribe. Yep. Also, so you don't miss anything. Yep. All our up-to-date information will be on our social media at Books on the Brain Pod, and we are currently testing out weekly uploads. You heard it here first. The weekly uploads are back. It has been a while, but we want to give it a try. So, New year, new us. New year, new us. So hopefully when you tune in next week, there will be a new episode. You can also follow us on our own social platforms. I'm at Deirdre Rose Morgan on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'm at DJ Books on TikTok, Instagram, and on Pinterest. Add me.
Thank you so much for listening. We will chat to you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.